Good evening everyone, this is Catachan. This video will be unscripted. This is a series that I've started so I can teach my friend Tyler about Warhammer 40,000. Today's episode, I will be going through the Imperial Guard. This is going to be part 2, where I talk about the different regiments in Warhammer 40,000 of the Imperial Guard. Not the Traitor Guard, just the regular Imperial Guard, the Astra Militarum. The Traitor Guard will come soon and eventually after I get through the Imperium, because I am an Imperium player. So I know more about the Imperium than any other faction. Mostly the Marines, the Guard, Sisters of Battle, Admech. I have a little bit of Custodians, but not really. And I have some Knights. But the Knights, they are a whole different animal. I will get to it eventually myself. So with that all said, I am going to start the video now. Hey, Tyler, how you doing, man? So this is Warhammer 40,000.
Tagging map, northeast, 200 meters.
Alrighty then, bro. So now I'm going to be talking about the different regiments in the Imperial Guard. The last video I made was talking and geared towards the structure of the Imperial Guard and kind of like what is in the Imperial Guard, like units, different soldiers, things like that. So now we're actually talking about the regiments, the different worlds, different styles of fighting. So the first one in my nice lovely codex, it talks about the Cadens. So the Cadens, they are from a planet called Cadia. This is a little excerpt from the codex. For thousands of years, the people of Cadia have known nothing but war, fighting always to hold back the infernal host of the chaos that pours from the Eye of Terror. Yeah, so something like that is... So, Cadia is a fortress world. So pretty much what that is, it is an extremely fortified world that it is all a military base. A giant military fortification base. They have thousands of ships, thousands of, like millions upon millions. Well, hell, it's a planet in far future. They have billions upon billions of trained soldiers. Pretty much every single person on that planet is born and raised to be a soldier. So with that being said, is that yeah, these guys are not playing around. So with the Cadians, so they are kind of like the poster boy of the Imperial Guard. They're just like the best way I can describe their armor, very similar to the U.S. Army, the armor that they wear, but a little bit more sci-fi. So it has shoulder pads. And the armor is a little bit more defined, where instead of it having like a slimmer silhouette, is that it has more of a defined features in its silhouette. They mostly have a helmet, shoulder pads, and then like a whole chest armor. And after that is, yeah, just boots and regular uniform. So the guard is like what one of the characters in there. So it is Lord Castellan Creed. So this guy, one of his little excerpts that's in there is, though our tanks and artillery are mighty, it is the vast ranks of Imperial Guardsmen that shall trample the enemies to dust. Let them come. So yeah, that's kind of how the Guard is one of the phrases that they say in the Guard is, if we cannot kill them with lasgun and chainsword, we will crush them with the bodies, or with the weight of our men's bodies. So yeah, they pretty much toss people into, like, people are cannon fodder. And they keep tossing guardsmen until the problem is done. Millions upon millions of people will die, but guess what? Mission success. So it's pretty much, however that is said, if the means justifies the ends. That's pretty much their idea and mindset. So right now I am drinking some tea. Once again, I am drinking from Safeway's Private Selection. It is a cinnamon tea herbal. And then I put some Irish cream liqueur in there because it tastes good. And it makes me happy. Alrighty then. One of the next famous regiments is called the Catachans. So it is spelled Catachan. Catachan. So Catachan is a planet in a Warhammer. It is a jungle planet. It is also known as a death world. Pretty much a death world is a super duper deadly world where almost everything there wants to kill you. So the best place I can describe that equals the current world is, think about Australia. Everything in Australia wants to kill you. Everything is poisonous. All the plants are poisonous. Everything in Australia is, we want you to die. That is Catachan, but knocked up even more. We're talking about on a daily basis, the jungles. The jungles have to be hit with flamers. Like literally, people have to go clearing the perimeter of their cities, their villages, their towns. Well, they don't have cities, but their large towns, their villages, things like that. Because on a daily basis, the jungle tries to reclaim it, and it moves so fast. So think about every single tree, every single plant there has the growth speed of bamboo. And bamboo grows about, I think they said 3 centimeters every hour, as fast as it can grow. So that's ridiculously fast. 3 centimeters an hour. So yeah, with that mindset and all the plants like that, on a daily basis, people are walking around with flamers, burning the vegetation back, just so that it doesn't claim their villages and their little towns and things like that. So the Catachan warriors, they're known as the Catachan jungle fighters. So yeah, you kind of had that idea in your head, jungle fighters, how do they look? If you've ever watched the movie Predator, so that's pretty much how those guys look. They're all Rambo, and they're all the soldiers that were in the first Predator with Arnold Schwarzenegger. So yeah, Arnold Schwarzenegger he was pretty much a vest with his shirt open, just like showing off his body and everything. Yeah, so pretty much that's how all the Catachan are. And one thing with the Catachan is they are all very buff. So yes, they're all kind of like Arnold Schwarzenegger or Rambo. So Sylvester Stallone, like in their prime. And they all wear a headband or a bandana that is red. So that's kind of their little symbol that they wear. That is, it kind of shows like, hey, the blood that the Catachans have spilt, so they can keep their planet safe. So they can keep their villages safe on their planet. So they're trained there, and living in that world is that you have to be tough. Only the tough survive in a death world like that. So these guys are known as one of the best fighters in all of the regiments, just because they're extremely strong, extremely smart, they adapt really well, they are really good. But the thing is that their world is a death world, so a lot of them die. So they cannot reproduce and make billions of soldiers like the Cadens can. So we're talking about there's probably a few million Catachan troops out there. And these guys, they're experts in like stealth and sabotage, things like that. When you need a mission done that requires some level of guile, is the Catachans are the guys you want to bring. And one joke with the Catachans that people say to insult a Catachan is they're mini Ogrins. So that's an insult if you would say to Catachan. That means straight up is like, we're fighting now. That's like, yeah, that is fighting words right there. All right, I'm going to take a sip of my tea. So, with the Catachans, a lot of depictions of them show them not wearing any armor. They're just wearing a vest with a red bandana and their las gun in their hand, a flamer, plasma weapon, whatever they have. And that's kind of like their little outfit that they wear. A lot of them don't wear armor because, remember, they're not going to be fighting straight up like, hey, we're holding the line and we're shooting against the people like the Cadens are. The Catachan is they're going around, they're fighting. So yeah, a lot of them don't wear armor because their missions and what they're used for does not require it. But in the actual game, when you're playing it, the Catachan jungle fighters, they have the same defense as the Cadian, like the Cadian shock troopers. Even though the Cadians have armor and the Catachans do not, it's just the game is, like the joke is, oh yeah, these guys are so buff, their skin is strong as Cadian armor. So that's a little bit of a joke there. Alright, next one. So, it is the Steel Legion of Armageddon. So Armageddon is a world in in 40K. So these are all worlds where these guys come from, and these are like the primary kind of worlds. So Armageddon is one of the excerpts that talks about the ash wastes of Armageddon are filled with corrosive toxins and industrial pollution, where a man to breathe the outside air of Armageddon's hives for any extended period, his lungs will quickly rot. So yeah, Armageddon is pretty much outside of their hives, like their sealed cities, are like everywhere's poisonous. So you don't breathe or you have a respirator of some sort. So they do have it. So the Steel Legion, how they look is that they have a gas mask on with a helmet on top. They have a long coat that's used to protect them from like any of the rain or any other toxins, and they have long boots that go past their knees, and they wear thick gloves. So yeah, they're pretty much sealed up. So yes, very similar to like the older, I want to say, in the like 60s kind of military like mop suits. So yeah, the military operation protection pieces, or however it's spelled again. I forgot. MOPP, something like that. But anyways, so these guys they're a famous legion. A lot of people like them just because of their looks. They have a gas mask, they have helmets, long coats, and things like that. So they were so popular at once in the actual game is that so many people got them, and there are 3 different legions that were actually made off using the Armageddon Steel Legion models and painted different so they would look. One of the most famous legions that were made off of them are called the Death Krieg, or the Death Corps of Krieg. It has a German name, but the way that they are dressed and colored is that is World War I France. So French soldiers, that is how they're colored. They have that grayish blue long coat, the brown pants, the helmets, and the masks of the French during WW1. Okay, so they're just a fun legion, and they actually look really cool because you have a whole army of everyone in gas masks holding their las weaponry or like heavy weapons, and they're all wearing gas masks, long coats. It actually looks pretty intimidating. So their specialty, like what they are, is that they're mounted troops. So they're very similar to a cav unit. So yes, well, not cavalry unit, but a cav unit. Yes, has same kind of name, but I'm talking about current day military cav. Every single soldier is mounted. They're in a Bradley or they're in a Humvee, and they're moving around. And they are used for quick action well, I take that back. Not the cav, but more of like mechanized infantry. That is better. Because all the infantry, they're all in Bradleys, they're all in Humvees, they move around, and if something happens, they jump out and then they start fighting. So that's how the Steel Legion fights. They're mechanized infantry. They're going around in their transports that are called the Chimeras, that where it can hold anywhere from 10 to 20 troops in the lore. In the game, they hold 12 troops. So you could have a unit of 10 guys with 2 leaders in there. And with a Chimera is that it has like a main gun, like a turret on top. It has like a hull gun that's facing forward, and then on the sides they have las gun arrays. It's pretty much like 3 las guns on each side that the soldiers can use to engage enemies from inside their vehicle, so they can fight inside their vehicle, so they don't have to get hit. But that is the Armageddon Steel Legion. They're mechanized infantry, and their ability is to use they use vehicles better than anyone else. So it's pretty much they can how it plays in the game is that you would drive them to a place and they're able to jump out. Most armies, they cannot jump out if the vehicle has moved. They have to jump out before then they can fight. So the Steel Legion can jump out of the vehicle after it's moved, shoot, and then next turn, so next turn if they survive, it goes back to their shooting phase. They can shoot again, then they can jump back into a vehicle. So they're really good with the vehicles. So like because with the game it has a movement phase, then the psychic phase, and then the shooting phase. So if you've already, during your movement phase, everything has to move, disembark, or embark a vehicle. The Steel Legion can disembark after a vehicle has moved, which very, very few units have that ability. And after the shooting phase, they can re-embark into a vehicle if they have not already disembarked that turn. Which is actually very tactically useful, it is surprisingly. Because you can jump out, pop, do some stuff, take an objective, jump back in, and your guys are safe. Safe from too much retaliation. It's actually very useful. Alright. So the next army. After I drink some more tea. It's actually pretty good. Because I put that Irish cream liqueur in there. With the cinnamon tea. Is actually pretty darn good. It really reminds me of like cinnamon flavored vanilla ice cream. It's pretty darn good. Okay. But anyways, so it is the Vastroyan, or the Vastroya. But they're called the Vastroyan Firstborn. So the Vastroyan Firstborn is every firstborn of, like in the planet of Vastroy, all of the firstborn, they are conscripted into the military. That's how they field their forces. That's how their military works on that planet. So with that, okay, so the Vastroyans, all their military is the firstborns of any family. Firstborn goes, joins. It is like that. That's the duty. So the Vastroyans, they are a proud race of people who have served the Emperor from the Horus Heresy and further. So they've served the Emperor and they are proud about it. So with that, and all of their families have done it. So with that is they actually do have a lot of weaponry that is very old and that is customized. So pretty much if like one of the people die, their armor and their weaponry would be returned to the family. That is a big thing about them. So they always return their items. And it's because the items are heirloom items. They've been in the family for thousands and thousands of years, centuries, thousands of years. And they are constantly maintained. Yes, some have degraded, but mostly they're huge about maintaining their weaponry. So the nice thing about their weaponry in-game Their weaponry has extended range. Most people will be like, some people, like if you don't play the game, you're like, okay, extended range, so a little bit further. Yeah, a little bit further. But we're talking about that little bit further is like 6 inches more. So that means that that's literally half the basic, or most weapons, their range are 24 inches on the actual tabletop. So like 24 inches, that's 2 feet away from your model. You can shoot another model. Add an extra 6 inches on that. That brings it up to freaking 30 inches. That's a lot, dude. And that really allows you to have a further range and actually hit. And that's actually very useful. A lot of people like that. People play tactics in that. And we're talking about all the other weapons, including their tanks, things like that. Everything Vastroyan has that further range. And also some weaponry that they have is just better than normal weaponry. They have like a stronger damage, like damages on their sheets. So it's like, oh yeah, Vastroyan las cannon. It does extra damage on top of your d6. Instead of like, oh, you roll a d6. Oh yeah, it's a d6 plus 1. So it's just a little bit more damage, but every pink of damage is noticeable in the game. So how the Vastroyans are dressed. So they are very unique. Most of their weapons are old style weapons that do have wood stocks, wood bodies, things like that. How they're dressed is they have a bearskin hat. Well, bearskin hat. They have a long red coat. They wear big brown black boots, and their armor that they have is brass colored armor. So their armor is, in the lore, is better than most Imperial Guard armor because they spend more money on it. Their planet has been serving the Emperor for a while, so they have a lot more resources, and a lot of their families are richer. So yeah, it's like that. They are all over in the lore. They are usually a better guardsman, but remember their forces are limited compared to Cadia. Because Cadia has billions of people that they can easily pop out and they reproduce quickly. The Vastroyans, their military is only the firstborn of every family. Okay, and how the Vastroyans look? The best way I can describe them is look at the royal guards. The royal guards of the English or the English palaces, like the Queen's royal guards. Those guys that are in the bearskin hats standing still. Yeah, that's kind of what they're based off of. And they're based off of their ceremonial garb, where they wear brass actual armor. Yeah, they have their same uniform on, but they wear brass shiny armor. That's kind of how the Vastroyans are. And while just going back into lore, yeah, one thing that's nice about the Vastroyans and their lore is every other guard regiment, what they do is if they ever need to reinforce like any of their units, they are not reinforced if their like forces are down, is they're just merged with another Imperial Guard unit. The Vastroyans, they are the only unit or the only Imperial Guard group that is actually reinforced by their planet. So if they need more Vastroyan Firstborn, Vastroy will send a ship filled with more troopers to reinforce their units. So they don't send out a large amount of units at all times. They always have to have a supply to reinforce their units. Because of their certain way of fighting, their way of thinking is, yes, they do fight different. They usually have the better weaponry, better armor, and they really take care of their weaponry because it's all heirloom. It's been in your family for thousands of years. Hey, even hundreds of thousands, well, even like up to 100,000 years, because remember, your great ancestor, he was fighting next to the Emperor, shooting people in the face for the Emperor. when the Emperor was still walking around. So they really take pride in their stuff. All right. After this drink, I will talk about the next unit. Next regiment. These are the Valhalla, the Valhallan Ice Warriors from the planet of Valhalla. So Valhalla is a planet that is an ice planet. Everything is cold, everything is snow. Best way I can describe them is think about World War II Russian soldiers, where they have the big Russian hat, that Burska. I believe that's what the name of the hat is. Most people don't know. I think I read it. Burska. And they have a long gray coat on. Like the coat that goes down to like halfway down their calves. And they wear big boots. So yeah. And they have like big old like warm fuzzy gloves on too. So they're ice warriors. Their big thing is that, yeah, they fight in the ice. They know how to fight ice planets. And they can really deal with like cold weather easier than anyone else. Because they're trained in it. They can handle temperatures far colder than anything most people can see. And yes, these units were an actual unit in the game too. The same as the Vastroians and the other factions I've talked about. So yes, all the regiments I'm talking about, the actual game had models for these units. They no longer do, or they no longer produce them, but the models are still out there. We're talking about there's still thousands of boxes that have yet to be opened just because just people didn't buy them, and they're just floating around in a warehouse. So yeah, their big thing is they can really deal with ice, they can really deal with the cold well. They are soldiers who are really dedicated. And their big tactics is they do use ambushes quite a lot. Because of like how everything is cold and the snow there, they can really go through rough terrain easier. Because the whole planet is rough terrain. So rough terrain is pretty much something that minuses your movement. So in the game, they have a bonus to that where they don't suffer penalties from moving through rough terrain. And then they're able to ambush easier. So usually an ambush is that you move a unit to a rough piece of terrain that where they can't be seen, and you remove them from the field. And then you can bring them, and then there's rules to it. So let's say you want to ambush next turn because those guys are off the field, they're not seen. Roll 2d6. That's how far you start away. Oh hey, guess what? You start 2 inches away from the unit. Well, I'm talking about older editions for anyone else that is listening. Oh, 2 inches away. You set up your whole unit 2 inches away, and then you start shooting and fighting there because they ambushed. And stuff like that. So, they're kind of fun. They have weird tactics, things like that. And these are the older editions before they before GW streamlined a lot of the guards. Or just a lot of the armies. Alright, now one of my favorite units, or regiments. So, they're from the planet of Talaran. They are the Talaran Desert Warriors. Yes, as you think, because 40k, for some reason, most planets in the game are just one climate over the whole planet. So, a little bit lore to the Talaran Desert Warriors. So their planet was once a nice lush planet, where they had lots of life, people living, things like that. Then chaos attacked them, and they shot virus bombs. Their virus bombs pretty much destroy all organic life on the surface of the planet, and they're broken down to a material that is highly flammable. So they would shoot a missile or something. It's called a torpedo missile or something like that. It is shot there, and it ignites the atmosphere. Well, it pretty much lights all the stuff, like all the organic life that was broken down, and it ignites it all, which ignites the planet, and pretty much burns the planet and destroys everything on it. That happened to them, but they had such a vast network of underground tunnels and cities and things like that. A large portion of the population survived, and because of the virus bombs were out there and the atmosphere was poisonous, is that they all decided they hold on, give me a second. I'm trying to scratch my nose, but I can't get the right angle on it. Okay. So what happened was after they pretty much destroyed their planet, the surface of their planet, the atmosphere was still poisonous. So in their tunnels, the guardsmen, the people on the planet, the military, they all jumped in their tanks and they had their tanks hermetically sealed so that it's the tank itself was a self-contained breathing apparatus. So they had scuba tanks. I'm not talking about they went into water because the whole planet is nothing but a desert now. It's scuba. They turned their tanks into scuba. And then they started fighting because chaos was invading. And during that time in the Horus Heresy, that whole event was known as the biggest vehicle tank engagement that has ever happened. And there has been no other vehicle tank engagement like that since then. So the Talarans, they are really good with their tanks. Their one of their big ability is they're good with deserts. So if any terrain is desert or rocky, they're able to move through easily, and their vehicles do not have to do a roll whenever they go through rough terrain, so they don't pop. And the Talarans, they're all about speed. So they're really fast. They have extra movement. And on top of it too is that whenever you run with them, so like with the game, you have normal movement, then you have a run. That's called an advance. Whenever you're advanced with them, on the older editions, it used to be you just double their movement. And their weapon types is, if any of their weapon types would turn into assault. So assault weapon types, so they had rapid fire weapon types. Then when you would advance with them, it would turn to assault. Assault weapon types is if you advance with it, is you shoot the number of, like the assault number, so it's like assault 2. You would shoot 2 times with it, but at a -1, just because you advance. And all of the Talaran weaponry and all their vehicles is they all have that ability, so they could move extra distance and still shoot, which usually they would not be able to shoot. If you advance, you pretty much spend your time, you would be shooting, moving. But the Talarans are different. They would move and then shoot after. And that actually made them very powerful because they would be able to cross the field so much faster, like the battlefield you have set up, and able to get to the points that they need to, objectives that they need to, or be able to really stifle your opponents. So they do not have a lot of movement. So that's kind of their big special ability, is that they're very fast. And yeah, they're just very fast, and that makes them very powerful, especially in the game. So how they're dressed, how they look. So think about the English troops that went to Africa during the time. So they just have like normal fatigues on. So just think about like normal fatigues, but they have longer boots that are usually meant to prevent them from sand getting in there. Their fatigues are sand colored, and then they would wear a turban. So they have a turban on, and they would usually have like shoulder pads and like some armor too. So they really look like they're kind of modern Arabic soldiers or World War I English soldiers that went down there to Africa. Well, I wouldn't say turbans now I think about it, but they had head coverings. It's kind of like I don't even know what that word is, but it's just like usually head coverings, and their head coverings are like hoods that are white. And they have goggles on because, hey, they're dealing with the sand. No one wants sand in their eyes. So those are the big. Those are kind of like the big models or the big units that are made by GW. That's the reason why they're in the Codex. So like a few smaller other armies that they've actually made units for. So it is the Mordian Iron Guard. So the Mordian Iron Guard, they are from a weird planet. Yeah, that's called Mordia, but it is a tidally locked planet. Just for anyone else that does not know what that means the planet only faces its system's sun. One side faces it, and the other side does not face it. And it stays like that. So with that is, yeah, they have a weird eyeball-looking planet where the whole planet, only a strip of the planet, is livable. The reason why they went to that planet is it was normal, but then during the Horus Heresy, fight happened, and then in that big old fight stopped the planet from twisting or from spinning like normal, and it just stays tidally locked. So because of that is the Mordian Iron Guard. How they're dressed. Okay, let's go to how they're dressed. So think about the Marines in their Class A's, their dress uniform, where they have that nice black uniform with the blue pants and then the hat, big old shiny belt with the white gloves and everything. Yeah, that's just how the Mordians look. That's their normal battle uniform. That's how the Mordian Iron Guard looks. And because of their planet is tidally locked, their big thing is that they keep in formations. They really keep in fighting formations, so they're always watching each other. So with the formations, that allows them to be able to overwatch easier, and they get bonuses to overwatch. So an overwatch is that if you set them for overwatch, is if anyone moves within their range of firing, is that you can fire upon the enemy during their movement phase as if it was your shooting phase. Or if in later editions it was changed to if your unit was charged, you can overwatch. And overwatch, it usually has a penalty at shooting, but the Mordian Iron Guard actually negates that penalty. So they're able to shoot as if it was normal shooting for them. And that really keeps... And in the older edition, the Mordian Iron Guards, they really were able to keep the enemy on lockdown because you did not want to get hit. You did not want to, in your movement phase, oh, I move my guys here, and your guys get shot up by a group of 20 guardsmen shooting at them. And yeah, it was pretty devastating. It really forced your opponent to really think and move strategically and try their best to stay out of line of sight or move a unit that they're willing to sacrifice just so that they can move another unit that they don't want to get shot up during their own movement phase. And then you have the Thetanith First and Only. So they've made some units of it. They've made a unit. So Thetanith First and Only is actually a unit, a regiment that is based off of a book series that is called Gaunt's Ghosts. So Ibrahim Gaunt is a Colonel Commissar, the first and only Colonel Commissar that was ever made. He's the Colonel Commissar of the Thetanith First and Only because their planet was destroyed after they left, and they're the only people from Thetanith that is still left. And he is the leader and he's the regiment commander of that. So the Thetanith First and Only's big ability is they are all about stealth tactics and forest fighting. They all wear a long coat that is a camel cloak where they're easily able to hide within and around things. So their big ability is that they're stealthy, so it is hard to shoot them. You can't see them from a certain distance. And if you're within the distance that you can see them, is that you suffer penalties to your shot because they're hard to see. And their abilities, they're all about stealth, so they do pop up. They have pretty much all their units have that ambush ability, kind of like how the Valhalla warriors are, but but their ability is a little bit different. Is they're more about stealth instead of just like, hey, we're ambushed and then we fight you. They're more about is, yeah, it's harder to hit us. You can make a unit based off of like a whole army based off of that, but the units that GW actually made is the Gaunt's Ghost unit. It's pretty much where it has all the named characters from the book series in a single unit, and leading it is the Colonel Commissar Gaunt himself. And that's actually kind of cool. Where I'm like, dude, that's kind of cool. And you can actually make an army base off of that. You would have to use special rules that where it's like, hey, I make my own regiment. They're about stealth, and then they all have like ambush and stuff like that. But in the older editions, they actually had their own rules like that. So those are kind of like the biggest ones that people know of. That there was actually models built for it, but we're talking about there is, like in this codex alone, the codex is a book that has rules, that has lore and rules for the game, and so it's a rule book for the game. So in the codex, there is at least like 50 other Imperial Guard regiments in here, but most of those regiments were just made by other people that had enough lore that GW accepted them and turned them lore. And people like them, but they never actually made models for them. But the units that I actually told you about is that's GW made models for those regiments. And that's why they're the big ones and the most famous ones and the ones that actually have their own rules and stuff like that. But now with that is, like, since I told you the Guard is one of my biggest armies and I played them the most, I will talk about them a little bit more, going into a little bit more depth in like the different units that are in there. Because I've talked about how they have their army structured up, some of the units. I've talked about the different regiments, and then now, next time, I'm going to actually be talking about the full up unit that is there. So, I'm going to end the video now. Thanks for watching. Like and subscribe. And remember, most importantly of all, always love the Cowhound. You all take care now.